Science and spirituality. Soul Awakening coaching has a few key differences that set it apart from traditional coaching. The main difference is the approach to coaching and not in the skills and techniques themselves. As with other kinds of coaching, the main skills you'll need for Soul Awakening coaching are good listening skills, the ability to connect, clarification skills, reflecting skills, and a non-judgmental approach. The main difference between the two perspectives is the framework for coaching. Soul Awakening coaching considers where you are in your journey, as well as what goals you hope to achieve in the near future. This perspective also considers the obstacles you may face and several scientific models of psychological and physiological development and how they relate to your chakra system. With Soul Awakening, ancient wisdom and knowledge of the human energy field are combined with what we've learned from spirituality, the human desire to grow and progress, as well as the stages of consciousness and psychology. So what can prevent our growth? We humans possess a natural desire to grow. This natural desire has been exacerbated with our increased exposures to technology and modern advancements. Even so, we still face barriers when it comes to reaching our potential. Our main barrier, fear. All of our experiences are stored in our subconscious mind. It is here that the information collected from both external and internal sources is processed at a rate of 400 billion bits of data per second. The mind is constantly collecting data from our senses. Our senses include sound, smell, sight, taste. All are received and interpreted automatically, so our efforts are geared towards survival, procreation, and other habits essential to the continuation of our species. While your subconscious focuses on the automatic interpretation and physiological responses of your body, your conscious mind is responsible for your logical thoughts made in your awareness. What makes it to the conscious mind is only a fraction of what goes on in your unconscious mind that is always at work keeping your body functioning and alive. Our thoughts and perceptions trigger the release of several chemicals and hormones within our body. In childhood, our development is almost entirely unconscious as we have little knowledge or control of our desires, needs, or path forward. Later in life, we grow more accustomed to making choices for ourselves while bearing in mind those choices bear consequences. The conditions we faced earlier in life, including our support systems and our exposure to nurturing homes and environments, will determine how comfortable we are with risk, change, and progress. People with childhoods met with less supportive developmental environments are less likely to feel comfortable in healthy environments. Instead, they become comfortable with pain, anxiety, poverty, abuse, subpar conditions at work, and poor relationships. Environments that are typically considered unacceptable for others are what they deem as comfortable for themselves. Exploring new relationships or settings may not be safe, so they become comfortable in their discomfort by scanning their subconscious for similar situations and their coping methods they've used to deal with them before. This familiarity keeps them stuck and fearful. And for as long as their fear is greater than their desire to find new coping strategies or better outcomes, they will remain in the stagnant state, unable to move forward. So how can we change the status quo? We are constantly trying to achieve the next level in our growth. We try to be the best husbands, wives, parents, friends, bosses, or employees in an effort to live the lives we so deeply want. Unfortunately, being introduced to stressful situations forces us to revert to the behaviours we don't necessarily like about ourselves. Have you ever found yourself scolding your children the way your mother did? Perhaps you made previous strides to overcome this behaviour and have reverted to it in a time of great duress. Some behaviours are so deeply rooted in our subconscious that even in our journeys to accessing our higher selves, we trigger something that reminds us of an early or unmet developmental need. This reminder may then manifest as an old emotional reaction we may not be proud of. What can cause an automatic response? Stemming from every emotion is a need that has been left unresolved. Too often we are so completely and utterly unaware of what needs we have that we repeat a toxic cycle of negative behaviours and experiences that produce equally toxic outcomes. We may feel like we have little power or control over our lives when we do this and may need help finding our way back to self-security. We may behave in ways that repel the very thing that we're needing as we lack the emotional intelligence to fully communicate these needs to others. There is a great body of work by Marshall Rosenberg, Nonviolent Communication, and he discusses and has a list of universal needs to help a person understand what need may be left unexpressed. Our genetic programming can be passed down to future generations, much like how our ancestors have passed down theirs. It's likely, however, that you aren't aware of the information your lineage holds unless you dig deep into your family's genealogy. World-renowned psychologist Carl Jung believed that the subconscious mind stored all of our conscious thoughts, along with long-forgotten memories and those that were inherited in the form of archetypes. In modern times, psychiatrist Carl Jung made us aware of these archetypes. He saw archetypes as the fundamental unit of the human mind. Archetypes, Jung wrote, in Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, are the living systems of reactions and aptitudes that determine the individual's life in invisible ways. Jung describes archetypes as the forms or images that occur all over the earth. Jung maintained that the collective unconscious allowed us to store memories that the individual was not, and perhaps never was, aware of. These images find their way into ancient religions, myths, legends, and fairy tales. We find evidence of archetypes in our dreams, fantasies, and behaviour, and the media use archetypes to evoke emotion associated to a product, so we rush out and buy it. These memories were special in that they were common to the entirety of mankind and were passed down through a special structure found in our brains. The collective conscious houses archetypes or universal ideas found all around the world. These archetypes are responsible for a great part in our behaviours as individuals. The sum of these different sections of our mind come together to form the individual in a process called individuation. Further into the concept of archetypes was Jung's assertion to the existence of the shadow self. The shadow self was based on the ancient Chinese concept of light versus dark in nature, yin versus yang, or the anima versus animus, an energy that exists within us all. A look into Carl Jung's history. Jung believed that we often project the very qualities we don't like about ourselves onto others. He believed that instead of accepting or studying our own behaviour, we often turn to wage internal wars over who we are. The self archetype. The self is considered the sum of the psyche. This includes every part of the psyche, including the potential part that can look forward and contains the motivation to progress towards being a wholesome human being. It's here that Jung maintains we fuel the process of individuation towards reaching our potential. The ego. The ego was what Jung considered the centre of consciousness. In conscious, our awareness, sense of identity, and existence reside. It organises our thoughts, feelings, senses, our intuition, and it regulates our access to memory. In the ego, our internal and external experiences are combined and processed to dictate how we relate and interact with the world outside. According to Jung, our extroversion or introversion determines how we relate to the external world. The development of our thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition all shape how we view the ever-changing world around us. The concept of the ego originates from the self archetype that is developed early in our brains as we add meaning and value to our earliest experiences. However, the ego is just a small piece of the complete picture that is oneself. According to Jung, consciousness is selective, meaning that the ego sorts which information it believes is the most relevant from our surroundings. The ego then makes decisions with the relevant information it's kept, while the rest of it dissolves into our personal unconscious. We may re-experience these dissolved memories when we have dreams or visions that feature elements we do not actively remember. When this happens, those personal unconscious memories will enter our personal conscious ego mind. Our persona. We have certain faces or masks that we wear in certain situations. How we act at home, school, work, and around family will be different. These different sides of ourselves can be considered the public relations part of our ego. Jung called these faces personas and maintained that the persona was a part of our personalities that arise for reasons of adaptation and personal convenience. Personas are helpful for our social interactions and allow us to communicate and receive messages easily in an array of different scenarios. As with anything else, too much of something can be a bad thing. As it turns out, identifying too much with any one persona can prove problematic. Think of the workaholic who cannot separate work from home, or the celebrity who has difficulty in situations when he or she is not the star. Over-identification with any one persona can stunt personal growth a great deal and may further limit the development of other parts of the self. Personas sprout from our desires and expectations of our best qualities, the same ones we use to please authority figures like parents and teachers. Our negative, contradictory traits are embodied in what we call our shadow or shadow self. The shadow. Our undesirable traits come together to form what Jung called the shadow. This is the part of ourselves that is most complex and easily accessible to our conscious minds. The shadow, like the persona, is also influenced heavily by the collective unconscious. Jung believed the shadow worked to balance the psyche, in the same way you cannot have the light without the darkness. You cannot have the persona without the shadow. The shadow keeps us balanced and can be used for our advantage for personal growth. Many people project their shadows onto others and react so extremely to the negative qualities they see in others because they know they hold that quality within themselves. It's important that we discontinue our intentional blindness to our shadows to properly balance them with our personas. The anima and the animus archetype. Another one of Jung's concepts of the human psyche was the anima and the animus, the contrasexual archetypes. Anima, the man, and animus, the woman, are developed from the traditional feminine and masculine archetypes and their experiences with the opposing sex. Jung previously described the animus as the unconscious masculine side of the woman, while the opposite was true for the anima for the man. From our very first experiences with our parents, particularly one of the opposite sex, these archetypes work to balance out our gender relations. Much like the shadow, the anima and the animus can be subject to projection. With these archetypes, however, one is in danger of idealizing them and seeking a mate that fits his or her anima or animus. Should such a match occur, many people report the phenomena of falling in love at first sight. Unlike his colleagues, Jung did not perceive either archetype to be superior to the other, namely masculinity to femininity. Instead, he viewed them as two sides of the coin, or two halves of a whole. Like light and dark, or persona and shadow, the two sides work to balance each other out. Individuation. Jung called the journey to being whole individuation. It was in this quest that we seek to become unique and different. In his research of individuation, Jung highlighted the importance of conflict in human psychology. To him, it was a necessary part of the growth that had to occur for one to slowly become enlightened and even creative. The obstacles we face from our environment and new surroundings each possesses a lesson that we can take in internally to help shape who we are. Jung called those lessons symbols, which were meant to guide us into a new direction where all sides could experience justice. The symbols were thought to be products of our unconscious minds rather than what one might have expected to be the product of a rational thought. A symbol contained both conscious and unconscious elements to aid in the transformation, and the transformation itself gives rise to the entire process of individuation. Archetypes, a map of the human mind. Archetypes influence everything you do, think and feel, and they're influencing everyone around you in a similar way. Because archetypes reside in the unconscious, the parts of our minds we aren't aware of, they influence us without us even knowing it. By using the SET model, you get to know the archetypes expressing themselves through you. You can learn the patterns that influence your behaviour and the effect that it has on the 4 pillars of your well-being. Archetypes provide a powerful way to understand our minds. Every human being has an inner world. It's the home of our fantasies, imagination, and emotional life. This inner world is the source of our personal meaning. Archetypes tap into the emotions of our inner world and give life a sense of personal meaning. Various forms of therapy seek to integrate these archetypal characters. They each have a different language to describe them, such as subpersonalities, parts therapy, and internal family systems. In the book, In Man and His Symbols, Jung explains that archetypes are the pieces of life itself, images that are integrally connected to the living individual by the bridge of emotions. When you experience an emotion, it's the emotion of an archetype. Different archetypes evoke different emotions. Lovers are passionate, kings are powerful, warriors are brave, fools are foolish, etc. So when you think of archetypes, think set patterns of behaviour shared by all of humanity. The great work of Dr. Hal and Sidra Stone on subpersonalities shows that a person is indeed capable of hosting hundreds of personalities or masks. Their work suggests that the subpersonalities are engaged, that their subpersonalities are energies that are subtle in nature and aren't within the conscious mind's grasps. As part of the unconscious, these archetypes work to give rise to our primary selves and our disowned selves, a theme we also see in Carl Jung's work. Jung went on to define several primary archetypes: the mother, the father, persona, anima and animus, the self, the ego, the shadow, the hero, the wise old man, the child, and many, many more. So what does our body do in response to emotions? How do we know we're being triggered by our unconscious thoughts? After all, as we previously discussed, there's so much we perceive, even if we do not notice it. Our first step to becoming aware of our responses is to become self-aware. Our brain contains the limbic system, the system responsible for emotions, memories, and possibly all of our instincts. We also have a system called the reticular activating system, which is responsible for alerting us to the possibility of danger, whether that danger is really there or not. These alerts let us know to be vigilant in the case the danger is really there, and are important for keeping us safe while we assess our surroundings. The danger the brain perceives may come a variety of sources. The danger the brain perceives may come from a variety of sources of emotional upset or trauma, and they can influence how we see our external environment. Anxiety has grown into a worldwide pandemic. Many of us live in poverty, trauma, and work in such terrible conditions that our nervous system is always under attack. What do we do with these fears? How should we react? And what are the root causes of our problems? Behind every fear is yet another fear. We might have underlying fears of failure, abandonment, shame, rejection, and even humiliation. These fears typically stem from the unmet needs of our inner child and how we parent that inner child now that we're adults. Does the inner child crave self-love, nurturing, acceptance, or something else? Becoming aware of how you support yourself during stressful times will bring you one step closer to achieving emotional mastery as they relate to your emotional responses. The vagus nerve. What does it do? The vagus nerve is the only bodily nerve that interacts with every system and organ. It is particularly responsible for how our body responds to emotion. The nerve begins at the back of the cranium down to the brainstem and connects with the heart, lungs, digestive system, and reproductive organs. The vagus nerve is one of 12 nerves in your body which all work to form two systems. The sympathetic system, which increases blood pressure, heart rate, energy, and breathing rate, while the parasympathetic system does the exact opposite to keep you calm. The parasympathetic system also oversees digestion and waste excretion of urine, defecation, as well as sexual arousal. You can feel the effects of our sympathetic nervous system when we feel our senses heightened, asking us to come into action. Your heart might be faster, and you may experience urges to run, fight, or freeze. You may experience other symptoms like a dry throat, even blood racing through your body. These are signs that your body is slowing down its digestive properties to conserve the energy you may need to fight or run should you find yourself in such a situation. Individually, we're not designed to handle these symptoms for long periods. As a society, however, we may face these kinds of fears daily, leaving us to become sicker as a population. Diseases like IBS, migraines, and even inflammatory diseases such as fibromyalgia may occur as a result. To help relax your nervous system, try rhythmic breathing. Many users find it especially helpful in situations you might deem stressful, like public speaking. What does the vagus nerve affect? The vagus nerve controls a variety of different bodily functions. For Soul Awakening coaching, the key functions we focus on are communication between the brain and digestive tract, communication with the diaphragm to relax the nervous system via deep breathing and meditation, decreases inflammation in the body by sending anti-inflammatory signals, which EFT tapping can help with, decreasing sympathetic responses, lowering heart rate, blood pressure, etc., managing fear to help the individual deal with anxiety, stress, and scary situations. It's important to note the nerves are various ways to calm our nervous system. The stress brought on by the fear of some situations sends signals from our gut to our brain, hence the phrase gut feeling, which is often used for scary situations. In extreme cases, overactive systems can lead to a loss of consciousness and may even lead to tissue or organ damage. What are hormones and what do they do? Previously, our brain was thought to operate separately and independently from our bodies. Since then, neuroscience has proven the opposite to be true. We now know that the brain and the body are interconnected and completely dependent on each other, and what affects our mental and emotional health will too affect our physical health and behaviour. As discussed previously, our bodies each have a nervous system. These nervous systems are designed to signal hormone production and elicit certain behaviours. In this next section, we will discuss what hormones are and how they affect our behaviours. Hormones are chemical messages that are secreted from the endocrine glands. These messages are responsible for most of our bodily functions, including hunger, emotional regulation, and sexual reproduction. Understanding the various hormones and their roles will help patients take better care of their health. The endocrine system. Hormones are excreted by the endocrine glands, which make up the endocrine system. The major glands of the system are the hypothalamus, responsible for body temperature, sex drive, hunger, sleep, moods, thirst, and the release of hormones from other glands. Parathyroid regulates the amount of calcium in the body. The thymus aids in the function of the adaptive immune system, the maturity of the thymus, and in the production of T cells, which support the immune system. The pancreas, which regulates blood sugar levels by producing valuable insulin. Thyroid produces hormones involved in the body's ability to burn calories and regulate heart rate. Adrenal produces and regulates hormones that control sex drive and cortisol, the stress hormone. Pituitary, considered the master control gland. This gland controls the other glands and produces hormones that regulate growth, especially during puberty. Pineal, also referred to as the thalamus gland, produces serotonin derivatives of melatonin, which affect sleep. Ovaries, a female gland, the sex hormone. These glands secrete estrogen, progesterone, and smaller amounts of testosterone. Testes, the male gland, sex hormones, produce testosterone, the male sex hormone, and sperm. Our perceptions influence our conscious and subconscious beliefs, which in turn influence our body's hormones and performance. Together, these hormones regulate a majority of what happens in our bodies based on what we process from our environments. So next we'll cover the intimate connection between the endocrine and the chakra system. We've covered the nervous system, our major hormones, and what the hormones control. We've also learned about the endocrine system, which is particularly important to soul awakening. For our purposes, we pay special attention to the endocrine system, but why? As it turns out, each gland in the system is connected to one of the 7 chakras. The chakras themselves are spinning energy vortices that are connected to the spiritual energies, not our physical selves. Our chakras connect us to the higher realms and beings, including our higher self, God, source, and intuition. In terms of physical connections, harming the body and the glands that help regulate it may also have negative effects on the chakras that are connected to it. Everything is energy, and disturbing the energy of the chakras, no matter how subtle they may be, can have physical consequences, especially if we are genetically or emotionally predisposed to certain illnesses. Why should we care about the endocrine system? Our biological makeup and emotional states can lead to chakra or physical toxic overload that eventually can lead to ill health. Certain diseases like breast cancer, hypothyroidism, or even diabetes are affected by our biology and/or our inactivity or sedentary lifestyles. Understanding what happens in our endocrine system is key to both physical and spiritual health. As for glandular organs, several of them are important to our biological and chakra health. The pituitary gland, for example, participates in the very complex biofeedback loop. This feedback loop works with the hypothalamus gland found in your brain and several other organ structures. The pituitary gland helps regulate hormonal release to inform your thyroid, sex organs, and other key structures what vital hormones to release and when to secrete them. During times of stress, the adrenals are ordered to release cortisol. The thyroid gland is ordered to produce the appropriate hormones based on current metabolism, and the sex gland in females, the ovary, release the hormones that regulate monthly cycles or the onset of menopause. For males, testosterone is eventually released and continues to be released over time for regular male development. All of this is thanks to our pituitary gland. Other glands, including the pancreas and digestive tree, are vital to our biological cleansing process and are considered the body's main detoxifier. Should they become backed up, causing them to malfunction, all the glands that are connected to the detoxifiers may too develop an infection. This sets the stage for various diseases like heart disease, autoimmune disease, or neurodegenerative disorders. The overload of toxins and chemicals eventually find their way into our DNA. So let's take a look at the chakras and their connections to the endocrine system one by one. So the root chakra, the sex organs and testes and ovaries communicate with the pituitary gland to secrete hormones like progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone, depending on the individual's sex. Should the typical amount of hormone secretion become abnormal, puberty may occur outside of the normal time of onset, and several cancers may develop. Other symptoms like weight gain, irregular sex drive, abnormal or painful menses, even acne and depression can also occur. Infertility may also occur when hormone levels are imbalanced. That's because our spiritual connection to our bodies and sex organs are associated with the root chakra, The root chakra is responsible for our basic needs and safety. It's connected to the glands responsible for our reproductive system as well. You can see how any form of abuse over the root chakra or molestation would affect one's safety and trust issues, as this chakra is damaged through direct physical abuse of the gland. Sacral chakra, adrenal and reproductive glands. The adrenals are found right at the top of each kidney. These glands are responsible for the rush of energy you may experience after coming close to a dangerous situation like a car accident or near-death experience. These glands excrete epinephrine, cortisol, and most notably adrenaline to fight an individual in fight or flight situations. Too many stresses to the adrenal can have very serious consequences. Adrenal fatigue syndrome occurs when we have continuous stress to our adrenal glands. They're not accepted by typical Western medicine. The symptoms of the affliction are well documented. Depression, suppressed emotions, chronic stress, and hormone irregularity can all occur as a result. This gland is also connected to the solar plexus and the root. The solar plexus chakra, pancreas and biliary tract. Located just above the digestive tract, the pancreas is vital to the consumption of sugars like glucose and the body's ability to convert energy. After we have a meal, the pancreas breaks down, excretes digestive pancreatic enzymes and signals in bile, a compound necessary for the proper breakdown of nutrients. As the body's only insulin-secreting gland, the pancreas is responsible for exporting the glucose we consume in our cells. Should this organ be damaged, the individual might come to suffer from pancreatitis and diabetes. This relative chakra, the solar plexus chakra, is the center point of confidence, ego, and willpower. This chakra oversees detoxification, digestion, bravery in groups and social settings, as well as self-esteem. To not know oneself can lead to physical issues as well as emotional and mental problems. Things like extreme fear or indecisiveness can generate bowel and digestion issues and ultimately disrupt beneficial gut flora, causing damage to the solar plexus. The heart chakra, the thymus gland. To protect the body, the thymus works to produce killer T cells that recognize foreign invaders in the body. Though not entirely certain in our current scientific advancements, the thymus has been linked to functions within the immune system and is located in the lymph system. Found just behind the sternum and near the heart, this gland shrinks considerably after puberty. The thymus gland is connected to the heart chakra, where it helps regulate the nervous system and anxiety, as well as positive life factors including compassion and harmony. Damaging this gland also harms the heart chakra, which is common in Western countries due to left brain energy and justice over mercy thinking. A typical Western diet is also playing a role in its deteriorating health. The fatty, chemical-laden food consumed in Western diets damages the heart muscle, forming plaques in the arteries. When this is coupled with less compassion towards others and an overworked heart muscle, the individual is bound for closed chakra and perhaps even heart disease. Consider how many people suffer from heart-related diseases like cardiac stents, chest pains, and various other ailments that require open heart surgery to bring them back to health. While it's true that one's diet plays a significant role in the health of our cardiovascular system, is not the sole factor in this rapidly spreading epidemic. One can awaken the thymus gland by tapping on the sternum. This will also stimulate immunity and ultimately promote relaxation. The throat chakra and the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is a small structure located in the throat and just below the Adam's apple. This sensitive gland aids in a metabolic regulation and requires iodine, halide chemical, to function properly. The thyroid can be offset rather easily by any substituting halide, including the chlorine found in pools or hot tubs, the bromine found in bread, and fluoride in water stemming from the toxic waste in China. The thyroid gland is connected to the throat chakra and regulates our free expression. Should this gland be overactive, you might be described by our peers as domineering or a poor listener. If the opposite is true and the thyroid is underactive, you might find yourself suppressing your true feelings. One might damage the gland by holding back their truths, or worse, lying to themselves. Other unfortunate occurrences may arise. When people feel that their voice is suppressed either at work or elsewhere in their daily lives, they may be leaving the emotional damage to the chakra unchecked. This can set a stage for serious autoimmune or thyroid condition as well. The third eye chakra, the pineal and pituitary gland. Somewhat of a mystery to Western medicine, the pineal gland has been the center of spirituality in Eastern countries for thousands of years. This gland regulates sleep-awake cycles by releasing the chemical melatonin. The pineal gland also regulates sexual maturity and has recently shown of the ability to release short-lived psychoactive substance called DMT. DMT is thought to be responsible for enlightenment in meditation and near-death experiences. You may know this gland by a different name, the third eye, as it's located behind the optic nerve at the center of the brain. The pineal is your spiritual antenna to the ether and ultimately your higher self. This third eye or ajna center has significant connections to both the master, pituitary gland, and the pineal gland. The crown chakra. The pineal, pituitary and nervous system. Similar to the third eye chakra, the crown chakra is also connected to the pineal and pituitary glands plus the nervous system. This chakra is considered the center of spiritual connection and all enlightenment. Found in the middle of the brain, this structure is shaped like a cone and sits atop of the pituitary gland. In order to open the third eye, these two organs must work together in unison. Eastern traditions have attributed the pituitary gland as the source of masculine energy, whereas the pineal gland is thought to hold the feminine energy. These two energy sources then meet in the third ventricle, which is our union of spirit. Together, the energies enable us to reflect inward to seek guidance, change and direction, a process that can only work when we are truly in the moment and connected to our higher selves. The two energy forces found in the pineal and pituitary glands also ensure that all biological functions and higher sensing intellectual functions work properly so that we may continue to develop and grow as we intended to.